Hey, it's Mike from the Run Testers. In this video, myself and Nick are going to be talking about a wearable that's kind of slightly different to what we normally cover on the channel, but one that could potentially be really useful for runners. It's this one here. This is the Whoop Strap 3.0. So it's not really a sports watch, not really a smart watch, not really a fitness tracker really. It's kind of tries to be a bit of everything. There's a real emphasis on really giving you a kind of clearer understanding of when you should be doing your kind of tougher sessions and maybe kind of helping you structure how you do your training. So it's a big emphasis on looking at how hard you worked in a session, looking at how you recovered in your sleep, and then using this kind of information to say, look, this is when you should kind of do this big long run or this tough interval session that you've got planned. And it's a wearable that's kind of embraced by some kind of high profile kind of places, big sports. It's being used kind of in the PGA, NBA, all the major kind of US sports have kind of embraced it as a platform. Now, it is one that's available for anyone to kind of make use of as well, us mere mortals. So myself and Nick, as I said, we've had these for kind of over a month now to really kind of get a sense of how useful the data is, whether it's reliable, whether it's accurate, and actually whether it's good for runners. So we're kind of going to dig into our experience, look at some of the data, look at what was good, what was bad, and let you know if this is a good one that you should look at. So yeah, here is our take on the Whoop Strap 3.0. Okay, so from a technical perspective, how does it actually work and how does it do what it promises to do? So you've got kind of optical light-based sensors, some that we've already seen in kind of smartwatches and sports watches, and it just kind of generates a kind of a range of different metrics. The key one really being here heart rate. So it uses that heart rate data along with the other kind of metrics that it's pulling together to kind of give you a strain score. Now the strain score is really about giving you a sense of how hard you've worked. So how hard you've worked in activities that you've done in the day, whether it's running, whether it's training, any kind of thing where you're putting your body under strain. Then what it will also do is track your sleep. So it's taking that strain score, also looking at your recovery through your sleep, and really trying to build a more comprehensive picture of your day, which can kind of dictate what you do after those days. It takes a few days to kind of really analyse that information to get a better sense of you. But the idea is that once it has that data, it can really kind of help you understand when you should kind of train harder, whether you should recover and rest. And from that, concept, it's something that everyone would want to have an insight into. So the question is, does it work? That's something that myself and Nick are going to get into now.
Broadly, I'm quite a big fan of the design of the Whoop. I like the kind of very simple strap without like a watch face. I don't mind, you can't see your stats on there. It's all in the app. It looks very understated, and there's lots of different straps you can swap in for it as well. So yeah, in terms of look of it, I think it's very good. It can be a bit fiddly to undo and adjust. I find undoing the clip is quite hard work. Often I'll just set the size and I'll just slip it on and off my arm rather than undoing it and all that. The material is very good. It dries very quickly after like a shower or something, and also like when you put it straight back on after washing it, it doesn't feel horrible to wear. It's not slimy or anything like that. So all in all, it's a good fabric and a kind of a good overall design. I also really like the kind of slip-on battery charger. That's a clever idea, and it's a handy thing to have. I'm most comfortable when wearing it on the wrist. Unfortunately, I've had huge problems of accuracy if I wore it there, so I ended up moving it to the forearm, where I found it the least comfortable but kind of solid accuracy. Eventually I just made the move and moved it all the way up to the bicep, where it now stays permanently. I can kind of forget it's there. It's not as comfortable as the wrist, and it only works. This isn't the bicep strap. It only works because, as you can see, I'm not a muscle-bound hunk. I have very small arms, so I can use the regular strap on the Whoop and wear it there. And it's it's not uncomfortable, but I could have used it on the wrist. But like I say, the accuracy wasn't there.
Okay, so my take on the design is that I absolutely kind of love wearing this. I mean, it looks great. I'm a sucker for something that looks nice and stylish, and Whoop has definitely achieved that on this front. This blue band that I absolutely love, and it looks great. And like Nick said, it's one where you can wear kind of all day. I've worn it to track my sleep. I've worn it to work out, run, different kind of home workouts. and it's been fine to wear and it hasn't been uncomfortable for me. Jump in the shower, like Nick said, you can kind of get out and it doesn't stay all wet and soggy, and it kind of dries quite quickly. So I would agree on that front as well. It's, you know, it's a good all-day wear wearable. The thing that I had to get used to was the fact there's no screen. I'm used, you know, we're all kind of used to looking down at our wrist on a watch, but it's something you get used to. You know, you kind of let it get on with its business in the background, and you kind of focus on what you normally would do in a day. And then once it's time to take a better look at your progress, or what you've done in your day, you can head over to your phone and have a look from that perspective. One thing I will kind of add on the kind of design and the phone and band kind of combination, I was using an Android phone. I did occasionally have some issues with syncing. It occasionally took a while, maybe lost connection every now and then. It wasn't terrible, but it happened every now and then. It would fix itself quite quickly, but I did have a couple of issues there on that front from an Android perspective. But from a design, comfort, look point of view, I love the look at this. I found it comfortable. It was never a real issue for me to wear it. So from that point of view, I think Whoop have done a really good job on that.
In terms of my running experience, start talking about accuracy, and this has been a bit of a horror show, I'm afraid to say, from the Whoop. I was generally wearing a Garmin HRM Pro chest strap, heart rate monitor, and sometimes I was also wearing a Polar Verity Sense armband monitor to compare to the Whoop. So you can broadcast the HR from the Whoop to a watch, so I could do that during a run and I could see live comparisons, because I was usually wearing two watches. And, you know, on the wrist, the Whoop was giving me no kind of accurate data at all. So in that position, I would generally be holding a watch that was linked to the Whoop, so I could then see its heart rate compared to another one. And yeah, it was pointless. I quickly moved it off the wrist because you really need accurate data to get anything from this, and I put it on my forearm. Here, it was definitely better in terms of accuracy. It still wasn't good enough to train with in that position. I'd say I was probably thinking about half my runs were tracked correctly with the Whoop on my forearm. Otherwise, I was still getting big spikes at the start of runs, or it would just read consistently wrong, or if I was doing any kind of intervals, you know, I would either miss the interval entirely or lag way behind the chest strap or the Verity Sense on my arm. So I finally ended up moving it to my bicep, which I think is an absolute must. If you're going to use this for running, you have to wear it on your bicep. Whoop sells a bicep strap. It fits mine because I have no muscle, even with a normal strap, so that's fine. And here I'm getting so since moving to the bicep, I'd say maybe 90% of my runs have been tracked well enough that I could use that data. I could use the Whoop as my main heart rate strap, even, you know, linking it to my watch. There are still incorrect runs from this. It does still like to spike at the start of a run for no reason. It isn't still as accurate as a chest strap monitor. It is an optical heart rate monitor. It will still lag behind on intervals. It will sometimes miss intervals. But yeah, it's kind of good enough that I think the strain readings you're getting from it are now of use to you if you are a very keen runner who wants to know the kind of pressure you're putting your body under. So in the app, it's a really well done app, I will say that, and I really like, you know, I can see the way my week is laid out. I can see Mondays and Thursdays, I tend to have easier days. I can see my strain fall. I can have a look at my recovery. I can try and maybe move my week around if my recovery's been really bad one night, and I can maybe think, maybe I'll do my session another day and try and get a good night's sleep tonight. I really like the sleep recommendations are based on peak, perform, and get by. That's a good idea. So, and generally I'm just looking to perform, let's say, and occasionally, maybe if I have a race coming up, I will start looking at that peak reading, you know, how much sleep, if I could maximize performance, so I need to just go to sleep really early tonight and try and get, you know, 9.5 hours or something. Some of that's really nice ideas. I like seeing the strain of different sessions, so I can think about it. You know, I'm often doing similar sessions a few weeks down the line. I can look back and see how much strain I was under, you know, in comparison. Those sessions, maybe I'm getting fitter. There's a lot of nice, neat stuff here for runners. A lot of it you do get on advanced sports watches, though, I will say that. But the Whoop would pair quite nicely with a cheaper sports watch, maybe, that doesn't have those features. And the app is really well done. But yeah, undermining all of this is the accuracy issue and the fact that you can't link it to a chest strap, which is more accurate. So general heart rate performance, obviously we've talked in depth about running and kind of the accuracy problems there, and I have unfortunately had accuracy problems just in kind of day-to-day wearing of the Whoop. Once again, really bad on the wrist, pretty okay on the forearm, only of use to me on the bicep is how I'd put it. On the wrist, I could just look at the heart rate reading in the app and just take my pulse and say, okay, well, it's 20 beats out. That's irrelevant to my life at this stage. On the forearm, that would happen less regularly, but the Whoop does track activities automatically, and then it will kind of inform you afterwards, oh, we've seen you had an activity there. And basically, any day that I wasn't completely sedentary and then running, so I wasn't working and then running. If, for example, I'd be spending the day looking after my daughter, a little toddler, I was, following her around, playing songs. We'd go and feed our chickens together. All quite low intensity activities, it's fair to say. Quite often I'd get, oh, here's an activity notification. You spent the last 2 hours in your max heart rate zone. It's like, okay, well, I haven't. And now my strain reading is 20 for the day, and all I've done in the morning is feed the chickens and play sleeping bunnies with my baby. So what is the point of that then to me? And it really is bad on that front. Even on the forearm, doing a lot of chores, walking around, doing things like that, things that, where you're active but not in any way putting yourself in performance zones, you just get way too many rogue activities thrown up that will just wreck your strain reading for the day, the week, and actually the month. It's all based on kind of baselines, this stuff. It's always comparing you to past things to kind of prepare, to give you your readings and your kind of recommendations. So one really bad day a week is enough to borderline make it useless, in my opinion. On the forearm, I'd have at least one of those a week. I've now moved it permanently to my bicep, and in that position, I've got much more accurate data out of it. I've still had one morning when it just didn't read anything, and I had no strain for the morning and stuff like that, and I'm still getting odd readings during runs. But overall, it's become a more useful thing just based on moving it permanently to the bicep. I don't know if maybe some people can get away with it on the wrist when they're not exercising, or on the forearm. During exercise, I think wearing it on the biceps is an absolute must to get any kind of useful data. But I'd say, yeah, even on the forearm, all these rogue activities were coming up way too often and just wrecking my readings. And obviously the key thing here is that, once you get that, say, I have had that activity when I've been feeding my chickens, I've been told I've spent 2 hours in zone 5, with a heart rate higher than I'd even hit during a 5K, for example, as my average. You can't delete any of that data. Like, you can delete the individual activity, but the heart rate data is obviously saved, logged in the app. Your day strain is this, whatever, and so, normally on those kind of mornings, I'd then be going for a run and I'd already be at a strain of 15 to 20. Adding my run on top of that, suddenly I've hit a really, really hard day, and like I say, all my results are wrecked. So, yeah, problematic in terms of heart rate is how I put it.
So running performance, I kind of split my time between the kind of manual tracking, which you can do from your phone, and the automatic tracking, which, you just go out and run basically, or do a workout. What I found on the manual tracking is kind of pretty straightforward. You're getting pretty kind of standard metrics. You're not going to get the kind of wealth of data that you're going to get from a running watch, or even kind of a smartwatch. The automatic tracking, I found generally kind of did well in terms of identifying the times that I'd kind of run and worked out. Also identifying the activities correctly, so it could work out when I was running, it could work out when I was kind of doing some HIIT training and kind of more functional training. So from that perspective, it worked quite nicely. And it's definitely worked better than some of the auto activity tracking stuff that I've used on kind of Fitbit and Samsung. But if you're looking for something that's going to give you rich running metrics, you're not really going to get that from here. And the best experience from that point of view is going to be if you're running out with your phone and manually tracking from the Whoop app. Okay, so let's talk about heart rate, which is pretty much integral to how Whoop works and how it works as a platform and shapes the insights that you get on here. Now, heart rate for me in the kind of initial time with this was actually okay. I was generally wearing it on my wrist, and the data seemed to kind of level out with when I was wearing it at the chest strap. But then as I spent a bit more time, I noticed that I wasn't getting that accuracy that I was expecting from the wrist. And you can see from the data that I got from a lot of my activities and runs was that it might have been the average heart rate wasn't quite there with the chest strap, or the max heart rate, which you see with a lot of optical sensors, was just kind of wildly off. And you can kind of see some weird drops in the data for a lot of my sessions, most of my sessions. I moved it further up my arm, and it was a little bit better, but there was still kind of discrepancies, I think, in the data compared to a heart rate monitor chest strap. I couldn't wear it on my bicep like Nick, so I had to contend with where I could wear it, where it was comfortable enough to wear. And ultimately, with that heart rate not being really massively reliable and fueling all of these kind of insights, can you rely on it ultimately? I only had maybe one of the rogue activities kind of logged that Nick experienced. It was smaller for me, but ultimately what I was more concerned about was the heart rate, and heart rate that fuels all of these insights in terms of your recovery. And ultimately, this just wasn't accurate enough for me. It was kind of better on the sleep side of things and tracking your sleep. I matched it against a Fitbit smartwatch, against another Garmin, against an Apple Watch, and generally kind of the Fitbit and Apple Watches are kind of what I consider kind of most reliable in terms of risk-based kind of sleep monitoring, and it kind of held up on that front, I think, but it's the heart rate that really makes a difference here, and for me it just wasn't accurate enough. I think if you have that bicep strap, then maybe you're going to get something more reliable, but when I moved it from my wrist higher up, back, the data just shows that it just wasn't accurate enough, which ultimately is a massive downfall for this platform on what it's trying to, telling you to do, really.
Battery life has been fine for me from the Whoop. It's generally 4 or 5 days, kind of as advertised. After about 4 days, I'll start checking on it and try and remember to charge it then. The only problem I have had is the power pack doesn't charge reliably itself. So if I put that onto charge, then I'll go and collect it to strap onto the Whoop to charge it. Sometimes the power pack won't have charged, then I've got to go and charge that again. So actually remembering to charge that to then clip it on is almost as annoying as just taking this off and charging it quickly. So although it's cool to have an always on design where you can slide the charger onto it, it has its problems, especially as the power pack is a bit dodgy, I think, in terms of holding a charge.
Okay, so battery life for me now, Whoop claims or states in the website kind of you should get up to 5 days battery life from this. Now I think that's really kind of factoring in the battery pack, which you can kind of wear on top of this. I found I was charging more frequently than I thought I would be. Every few days, you get notifications to your phone to say that the battery's running low, but I felt like I needed something a bit more to kind of nudge me to kind of go and charge. And what I found is because there's no screen, that I would look down thinking that the Whoop strap was charged. I'd gone and done an activity to only look and realise that it's run out of battery. Also, from the kind of charging perspective, I did find it occasionally with the charging cable that maybe it didn't seem to be plugged in properly or charging properly. I like the solution of being able to walk around with the charge pack on top, but ultimately I just wish it held up battery life a bit stronger based on my experience, and I think it's something similar that Nick felt as well. So battery life for me, not fantastic. A few days, I think, then you kind of have to get it back on the charger or drop on that charging pack.
So I kind of have two verdicts on the Whoop. One is on the system as it is, which is massively flawed because of the inaccuracy of the sensor. At the moment, I just can't recommend it because unless you're prepared to wear it on the bicep all day like I am, then I can't trust it. I don't think you should trust it, and I'd be keeping a very close eye on it the whole time if I was you buying it, just to see if you're getting enough accuracy to get anything from this data. I guess the second verdict is on the basis that if it was producing accurate data, what are you getting? And what you are getting is a really clever, well-designed app that really does break down your strain and recovery very simply, collects quite complex data, quite complex ideas, and presents them to you in a really good way. So, like I say, the last 7-10 days, I'm getting better data from it. Finally, the app is starting to open up and be a bit more interesting to me because I'm not just going in there to see what rogue activities have been logged. And yeah, it's good stuff. Like I say, the sleep tracking is cool. I think it's pretty good. I like seeing my heart rate variability and a kind of resting heart rate trend lines and just seeing if my resting heart rate's rising. Am I starting to get accumulated fatigue? That kind of thing. Like my week being graphed, the strain against recovery, it's really nicely done, and it's a lot better than you're getting from some apps from like Garmin and Polar who have devices now tracking a lot of this stuff, but it's not presenting it anywhere near as well in the app as Whoop does. However, there's still, even when it's working at its best, there are some problems with the Whoop. It is expensive. It's free strap if you sign up for 6 months at £30 a month. It's £180. There are obviously discounts if you sign up for longer, but the subscription model is always kind of going to keep hitting you if you do like this. I'm not really a fan of that. And there's a lot of good options out there where you're paying up front, and then the app is a free service. Wearing one of them right now, which is the Aura Ring, which so far has been a lot more accurate for me. It's not very interested in your activities. It will take your activities from things like Apple Health, but most of the stuff the Aura Ring does comes at night when it tracks your sleep, it checks your heart rate variability, things like body temperature, and gives you that readiness score. But there's some similar ideas to the Whoop in what I think is a kind of more comfortable, attractive package that has also proved more reliable for me so far. And then there's the fact that a lot of great sports watches out there are now doing a lot of analysis of your overall effort, using your heart rate variability. That's Garmin's Body Battery does that. Polar obviously does that with its nightly recharge and kind of really good sleep tracking. And you're getting all of that in a sports tracking watch. They're also very good sports tracking watches, and they feed the info into your workout suggestions, things like that. They're really clever. Like I said, they don't maybe have as good a presentation in the app as Whoop does, but you're getting a whole lot more for your money. And while they are more expensive, obviously up front, you're not paying a subscription service, and you're getting a device that will do a whole lot. I think the Whoop is quite a nice complement to maybe a cheap fitness tracker that doesn't do all that kind of stuff. So if you do get a budget running watch, but you find that you do end up really worrying about all the strain and recovery stuff, you could add the Whoop to that. It pairs quite nicely with the Apple Watch for similar reasons. But if you're investing now, I would definitely, if that is an interesting area for you and you are looking at a sports watch, I'd be looking at the Vantage V2 from Polar, Garmin 745, Garmin Phoenix 4 and a 945, which are giving you a lot of kind of clever training insights using the similar kind of data as the Whoop, but all on top of the sports tracking package you're getting there. Although I do quite like the Whoop service, I like the idea of it, I like the way it's presented. I think the sensor is massively undermining the software right now. The hardware is killing the software with kind of inaccuracies, that power pack not working all the time. But there's a good idea there, and it's kind of well done in the app. I think you're probably better value by buying a sports watch or even something like the Aura Ring. But yeah, so I don't know. I quite like it, but it's just had so many problems with it, and that's just not really good enough. I can understand an optical heart strap is not going to be perfect, but for a device that entirely rests on the quality of the data tracked by this, it's not really acceptable that this is, like I say, one of the worst heart rate trackers I've come across in the last year or so. So yeah, that needs to be sorted out, and then there'll be a more interesting product here, I'd say.
Okay, so my verdict on the Whoop Strap 3.0, is this a good option for runners? From a pure accuracy point of view, at least from the heart rate monitoring, it's just not really up to task based on my experience. So it's a difficult one. If it was my money and I was paying that monthly subscription, would I want to? I'm not sure. I mean, I did like, the sleep tracking, which I thought was great, and that's kind of what's kept it on my wrist a little bit longer. The app is really well designed, which is something you don't always see. It's normally kind of, either the hardware or software, one of the two. Hardware or software kind of is really great on these things. It's a software that, kind of really impressed, but ultimately it's kind of let down by the reliability of the hardware, I think, and the sensors. So from my perspective, if you're a runner and you're looking at the Whoop Strap 3.0 as an answer, to help you kind of be, offer more insights into your training and when you should train, sadly, just wasn't reliable enough for me. So there you have it. That's mine and Nick's take on the Whoop Strap 3.0. Now, if you've got any questions, obviously there's a lot to kind of talk about here, and we've tried to kind of keep to the core essence of what Whoop is about. Obviously, let us know. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. It was kind of interesting, insightful. Obviously, like and subscribe. Hit the bell to hear about our new videos. And yeah, we'll see you for the next Run Testers video.